way, Dr. Ashley. So welcome everybody. Tonight is one of my by far favorite classes. It's a safety pin cycle, and we have our giant safety pin on the wall. We're going to talk about that, but really what tonight is about is what we're actually going to start with a short video. I have two clickers because one of them works for one thing and the other works for another. So, this worked a minute ago. There we go. So we're going to watch about a 1-minute video. We're going to talk about the video a little bit and how it makes you feel. Or we're going to skip ahead. It's the problem with having two clickers on the same computer. So while we're waiting for that, when people hear about a safety pin, what do you think a use of a safety pin could be? Has anybody had kids, like way back in the day?
Hold things together.
Hold stuff together, right? So let's try this one more time. Click the other button. Oh, come on. This worked a minute ago. There we go. Awesome. All right, let's try that. I was about to describe the video instead.
It's time to decide.
So which version do you want? How do you get one over the other? Any idea?
Taking care of yourself.
You have to take care of yourself. The number one cause of death in the world is ignorance. And when we think about ignorance, we hear the word ignorance, we usually have a negative connotation to it. But it's not negative. What ignorance truly means is people just don't simply know they have another choice. So when I watch this video, when I think about this video, I actually have, well now one, but I had two people in my life that I could completely identify with this. So one is my grandmother who's still with us, has her own giant house, takes care of everything by herself. The other is my grandmother who passed away a few years ago. One definitely was the one on the left, and one definitely is the one who ended up in the nursing home with Alzheimer's, and last time I went to visit, she thought I was her son and couldn't figure out where her husband was or anybody else. All of those people had passed away years before that. So you have a choice to make, but you have to know you have an opportunity to make that choice. So in the case of my grandmother that's still with us, she learned early on that she grew up on a farm. She understood the way that animals are taken care of, what she needs to do to take care of herself, very much lived from what was given from the land of what she had to do with. So she grew up knowing how to do everything. If you take care of an animal a certain way, why would you take care of yourself a different way? And my other grandmother grew up in the society of you always go to your doctor, you always do what your doctor says, they know exactly what the best thing is for you, and you're always going to do what they tell you to do. We would think, we would hope that by doing either version of that you'd end up over here. But the sad truth is my one grandmother who did that took all the medication she was told to, that did all the things she was told to do, took all the drugs, everything they could think of, is the one who died younger, years before, losing all of her facilities and the ability to even think and know who she was. So the difference here is what one of my, I've decided he's a mentor of mine, he doesn't know it yet, I've only met him once or twice, but what he calls allopathic. Because the business of taking care of people for their health, trying to help them be healthy based on covering up their symptom is absolutely pathetic. There is no person on this planet that ever gets healthy by taking a drug or a medication. Now let me back that up. If you need that for, say, you get some kind of infection, you need an antibiotic for a brief time, that's a different story than when you get put on a drug or medication for life. So I asked this question one of the last times I had an opportunity to talk, and I know what the answer is every single time. Has anyone ever known someone who's been chronically ill that took the medication, that got better from the medication, is not chronically ill to this day? The answer is no. The entire purpose of it, and it's the sad truth of what our health and what our health care is in this country, is that it's sick care. You go to your doctor primarily when you're sick. You go to them when you have a health crisis or health challenge. If you go to your medical doctor when you're healthy, they look at you like you're crazy, unless of course you're there for your checkup. And I've tried this, I've experimented with this, and I've done it with a couple of different primary doctors that I've had along the way. And they said, why are you here today? I said, well, because I'm healthy. They said, so you don't have a problem. You don't have a symptom. You don't need whatever the medication is. I said, no, you're my healthcare provider. I want you to tell me how to be healthy. They had no clue. Why do you think they didn't have a clue? Any ideas?
They only treat the sick.
They only treat the sick. They are taught to treat the sick, which is awesome. It's amazing. We need that. When I was less than a year old, I almost died of pneumonia. I was saved by a medical doctor treating that sickness in my body. However, if you only treat the sick, if you're only trained to treat the sick, do you have the tools to teach somebody to be at their healthiest? Or what I love to call it your, oh come on, really? Ah! It's messing with my plan and my mojo. It's just not going to go now. Your God-given potential. So that's what we're here to talk about tonight. It's not the symptom that you have, the ache or the pain that may have led you to this office or to a chiropractor in the first place, because that's important. And we want people to not be in pain. But we're not actually designed to simply survive through life. We're designed, no matter what your faith beliefs are, to have a thriving and abundant life. So what we're talking about, what we talk about at every single class with every single adjustment, is utilizing and getting to your God-given potential. Because every single person here came here because they had a health challenge. And I completely understand and respect that you came here to get that health challenge better. But if all we do is treat that symptom of that problem, what's going to happen at the end of the day? Is you're not going to get better. So I had someone today who's been in really bad pain for a really long time. And today he said, my back no longer hurts, this is an awesome day. And I said, you know what, that is awesome. And it's one of the worst days that can happen in your care here. Because so many people, the day they feel better is the day they go, thanks doc, you're amazing, you're a miracle worker, I'll see you next time. We didn't fix the problem yet. We took care of the symptom, yes. You may remember, those of you who are patients, when we first started off, we talked about how out of all the nerves in your body, only 10% of them are dedicated to telling you when there's pain or where there's a symptom. That means if you are focused on the symptom, you're missing out potentially on 90% of your life or your health. Because there are other things that happen in our body that can be there for years or decades without any symptom at all. One of the ones we often talk about is heart disease and cancer. The first symptom of heart disease is the heart attack. It's not because one day you go, oh, my heart feels a little weird. I mean, that might happen, but generally the first symptom that happens is the heart attack. So if we base our life on symptoms, we're never going to get to our God-given potential, we're never going to get to where we want to go, or the health that we could have. Because, show of hands, does anybody want to go through life sick and in pain and simply surviving? Right. I ask questions I know the answer to. But, who wants to go through life thriving, living to their most greatest potential, whether you believe in God or not? I very clearly and obviously do. That wants to have that potential that you might not even be able to imagine what that could look like for yourself, but wants more. So we all want more in life, whether it's a faster car, a nicer house, whatever it happens to be, we all want more. But we miss very often when it comes to things like our health, that we have to make the choice, the right choice to help us get to that more. It's not always the simple, not always the easy choice. So when we talk about the way the body works, one of the principles of chiropractic is what we call above, down, inside out. It's where everything comes from, it's where our health comes from. So if we look at this happy person, that you think they're smiling, maybe they are, it all starts in your brain. So can we all agree that everything that your body does all comes from your brain? Right? It's what controls and coordinates all of it, absolutely. So it then comes down through the spinal cord. So could there be a spot along the way that it could have a challenge? Right? In chiropractic, that's what we call a subluxation. It's where one of the bones that surrounds the spinal cord actually physically moves out of its proper location and puts pressure on the nerves that are coming out. That challenge destroys 60% of your health in your life 100% of the time. This isn't a when it hurts, it's 60%. By the time it hurts, it means more than 60% of that coordination and control that's all in your brain is gone, 60% of it. So you're living life at 40% before a symptom ever shows up. The research has shown that it literally takes the weight of a dime or a feather. They weigh approximately the same. But if you think about it, we've all held a dime in our hand at some point. It doesn't weigh a lot. That's all the pressure it takes to shut that nerve off by 60%. So imagine that you have one of those symptoms, that you have that pain shooting down your leg or that migraine headache or acid reflux or whatever it happens to be. It means those nerves are actually working less than they're designed to and they have for a long time. So that's why I say one of the worst days in someone's health journey in our practice is the day that your pain disappears. Because if I don't have the conversation I'm having with you right now, people think that when I'm better, when I feel better, I am better. and they go on in life, and they show up years later in some unfortunately worse condition. We actually just had one of our practice members restart after 2 years. She had a shoulder surgery a couple of years ago, and in the process got busy, kind of fell out of care. When she was here before, she had phase 1 of breakdown and degeneration in her spine. Basically, phase 1 means you've lost the normal curves, the discs are still perfectly healthy, but the joints aren't as healthy as they should be. 2 years later, she came back and she's in advanced phase 2. Phase 2 means there's arthritis, there's degeneration, there's disc breakdown. The difference between phase 1 and phase 2 care-wise is someone in phase 1 of care, usually we can get that person back to 100% health within a couple of months. Someone in phase 2, we're looking at years worth of work. All the textbooks, all the doctors you talk to, even the Arthritis Association of America will tell you it's supposed to take 15 to 20 years to go from a phase 1 to phase 2. We're seeing this a lot. It's not just her who came back 2 years later, but we've had other patients that over the course of a couple of years went to try a different version of care that they thought might work better. They came back a few years later and their spine was actually in phase 3. So it's not that those other things don't work, but if you're not working on the most primary, the most important, then there's no way that your body can heal itself. Because every time we lose 60% of that communication, our body breaks down faster than it's supposed to. So for a long time in chiropractic, we've used this handy little safety pin guide to explain how that actually works. So chiropractic today is actually 121 years and 2 days old. That's pretty fun. We celebrated the birthday yesterday. If you were here, you got a cupcake. If you needed the sugar-free version, I'm sorry. But you got a cupcake if you wanted it. But anyway, the way that the body works is if this is our brain, and this is the cell in our body, wherever it's going, if that communication system works in both directions just right, you're going to live to that God-given potential. You're going to live at 100% exactly the way you were supposed to. This brain is responsible for controlling about 100 trillion cells in your body. That's a big number. I can't count to that. I don't know if you can. But it's even hard to fathom what 100 trillion of anything looks like. We have somewhere between 75 and 100 trillion cells in our body, something along those lines. So if we have any subluxation anywhere and break that pattern, what happens to those cells? They work at 40% of what they should. What that also means is those cells are replaced approximately every 9 months. So every 9 months that this is hanging out in your body, symptom or not, your body is getting less and less and less healthy all the time. Have any of you ever had the conversation with yourself of, I wish I felt like I did, just pick whatever 10 years ago was in your life, right? I mean, we have that conversation. Our bodies are actually designed, if everything is communicating right and everything is working the way it's supposed to, they're genetically designed to last in excess of 125 to 150 years. So if you're 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 and on, or whatever that happens to be, and saying, I wish I felt like I was 10 years ago, then maybe we're playing the game wrong a little bit. Maybe we're missing out on something. Because if at 70 years old you say, I wish I felt like I was when I was in my 60s or 50s or 40s, if we respect the way that our body's designed, and if we learn to do everything right, at 70 you're halfway through the game. Does anybody know what the average life expectancy in America is right now? Yeah, so we've learned to live about halfway through with the system that we have. And yes, we're doing great compared to a couple of generations ago, and if we look back even a few hundred years ago when people lived into their 30s and 40s, we're doing awesome. But we're still missing out on a big key piece. And that big key piece for a lot of the population is learning that you have to take care of your spine in order for your body to work the way it's supposed to. And this isn't a new concept by any means. Does anybody know who Thomas Edison is? Maybe smart guy? You know, what's some of the stuff he came up with? Yeah, it's how we're all here when it's raining out and we can see. So, Thomas Edison actually said a long time ago that the doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will interest his patients in the care of the human frame, your spine, in diet, which was the class last week, by the way, and in the cause and prevention of disease. So, does anyone know what causes disease? It's really, I love explaining complex things simply. Your body's ability to adapt, or what's called your adaptive potential, is basically how long you're going to live for. The closer your adaptive potential gets to zero, the day it hits zero, that's the end of life. So your body's inability to adapt is what causes disease. It doesn't matter what's causing that inability. If you have what we call in chiropractic that subluxation, you've lost 60% off the top without question. But if that's a poor diet or poor lifestyle choices, like you don't exercise at least 4 or 5 days a week, or maybe daily, every day would be the best, but if you're not getting up and actually moving your body, wherever those poor choices are, reduce that adaptive potential. So our jobs as people who want to live healthy and abundant lives and want to be like the guy on the left side of the screen as opposed to the right is to make those great lifestyle choices. So if you had a cupcake yesterday, that wasn't a bad choice. If you had 10 cupcakes yesterday, that's a bad choice. And if you have a cupcake every day, that's a bad choice too. Treating yourself every so often, not a bad thing. As long as you're doing all the things you need to do to actually take care of yourself and do what, the smart guy who came up with the idea of a light bulb did. Really focus on the way the body works, respect how it works. It's not a new idea, but it got lost. And one of the reasons it got lost is there's a whole bunch of money in drugs and pharmaceuticals. It's the sad truth of it. And I had just read an article today related to the anti-vaccine movement, which is really fun because it's not anti-vaccine, it's inform yourself movement. But they're anti-vaxxers, so they're crazy, and I guess I'm one of them. Crazy bad person because you're just inform yourself. I'm not saying don't get the vaccine, I'm saying learn about it before you get it. But the drug companies are so upset with the amount of people that are starting to question the process that they're threatening to take away the giant bonuses that the people in charge will get. Really? Like, now let's try to figure out how to make this a safer thing. We're going to take away that big bonus you're going to get unless you basically take these people who are learning to inform themselves and squish them down and get rid of them. So one of the things we're going to be doing in our office, before I get too far off topic, I put it up on our Facebook page. If you've heard of the movie Vax, great. If you haven't, great. It's really about learning. I got both of my copies in earlier this week. Pretty excited they showed up. We're actually going to be doing a screening in our office, or what I have to call a private screening for all the legal stuff, but a private screening in our office so we can be more informed about those things. But when we look at it and they go, let's not make the system healthier, let's get rid of the people that want health, and then we'll give you all your money. We see where the money's coming from. So this is actually what we call the pathway to health, or the way that your body works, or basically the safety pin cycle explained in a little bit more detail. So everything in your entire body comes from the communication of your brain. There's no question to that. We all learn that at a young age, just like we learn we need to brush our teeth. But the system that we're not taught about in school, just strangely enough, is our nervous system. We all learn about the skeletal system, or anybody from Canada, skeletal system. We all learn about the circulatory system and the immune system and the digestive system. But nobody ever teaches about the nervous system. It's kind of weird. I think that's strange anyway. So no matter what happens in your life, if your brain communicates down with one of those numerous cells, everything works great. Everything is fine. Your body works exactly the way it was supposed to, or what I love to call your God-given potential. Again, that is truly what chiropractic is about as its core. It's not about helping you feel better. It's about, that helps too, but it's about letting your body do exactly what it was designed to 100% of the time. But if we block that nerve flow, reduce that your body's adaptive potential, we get sick. So the word disease actually came from, there used to be what's called ease in the body, you're healthy, or a lack of ease, which just happens to be called dis-ease, and they got rid of the hyphen because we like to make things simple and easy. So now it's disease. So we get that every single time. It doesn't matter if it shows up today or it shows up 10 years from now. They've done the research studies on these things, and they found that 100% of the time, if we know what someone dies of, and we trace that nerve back to the spine, 100% of the time, that joint is broken down, degenerated, and putting pressure on that nerve. There's no question to if it's going to happen. It's more of a question of how long it's going to take for that body to break down. So we get that subluxation, whether it's on the path to or the path from, and it causes any symptom that any of you have ever come in here with or anyone knows that has ever had. That's why we ask you to please share some of the information you learn with people. I was just having a conversation with my mom last week. She's a teacher and a tutor. And she said, I have this new student, she's 11 years old, and they just fused her spine. Why would they do that? My first answer was because the doctor was dumb. And I realize I'm live right now and I'm probably angering some people, but that's okay. Because in their paradigm, my guess is she had a big scoliosis. That's my only guess. She must have had a scoliosis with a lot of curve in it. But they say, well, we have to fuse it before they hit puberty, because once they hit puberty, it could get worse. Except, you have an opportunity to fix that. You actually only have until they're boys about 18, girls until they're about 22, to actually take the opportunity to potentially fix that scoliosis so it's not there, so they don't have to deal with it in life. But if they're fusing their spine at 11 years old, there's no chance of that. And Dr. Ashley said, well, those titanium rods aren't going to grow, so what are they going to do? This poor little girl has been set up for multiple spinal surgeries for the rest of her life. Because the doctor, that's the doctor's toolbox, and the parent didn't know because nobody ever told them. My mom found out she lives right behind her. She could have had that conversation anywhere along the way, but they didn't meet. They live in a city, so whatever. But that's that person's life, and that's literally what's at stake if we don't share some of this information with people. Because people just simply don't know. Remember, the number one cause of death and disease is ignorance of a better solution. So symptoms, whatever they are, doesn't really matter. It causes a lot of things. Symptoms are important to the person. They're important to me while we're working to help take care of that. But the bigger picture of all of it is helping your body work exactly what it was designed to at 100%. So what causes us to break that system, to break that healthy, normal cycle? This is the interactive part.
Sickness.
So sickness. So what could be something that causes sickness? So you see sick people all the time, right?
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that come in and say, I did this and now I'm this way?
Injuries.
Right, injuries. So that's a big one. People show up all the time in the hospital with injuries. So maybe gravity. If we fell and there wasn't gravity, could that be an injury? Well, if there wasn't gravity, we'd be fine. We'd just be floating around. We'd be happy. We probably wouldn't have a skeletal system, but that's cool. But anyway, so it's those injuries. It's actually gravity breaking down our spine. Gravity is constantly breaking our body down if it's not working right. So again, whether you have a symptom or not, if there's a subluxation there, it's causing your body to break down faster than it's supposed to. So it's not about the symptom, it's about how your body's working. And then there's the injuries, the trips, the falls, the accidents. That can be anything from, Dr. Ashley tried to dig a drainage ditch in our backyard 2 years ago. She didn't get very far, there was a lot of roots. I was mowing the lawn the other day, I forgot that ditch was there. So it could have been anything from when I twisted my ankle and went down and she adjusted me later. Or it could be a car accident or some kind of big injury. Whatever it is, your body remembers all of that. How about taking stress too seriously? Does anybody ever do that? Do you ever walk around like this?
Yes.
And people go, put your shoulders down. So in our weekly training yesterday, we were recanting some stories about things when you feel pulled in all different directions. And as our massage therapist, Dee Dee, was telling her story, we just watched her shoulders go like this. Like, Dee Dee, relax. So we do. We carry our stress, and that can actually, imagine, cause us to lose the normal curve of our spine, cause a lot of pressure everywhere. How about bad posture? So what's the first thing we checked for those of you who are patients when you came in? Your posture. There's a reason we did that, because posture tells us a great deal about how your body works. And whether you have great posture or poor posture, whatever that happens to be, it's going to build those patterns in. Sitting all day is a bad one. We have an entire class on sitting because sitting is considered the quote-unquote new smoking because it's so bad for people. So if you have a job where you have to sit all day, you are doing yourself a huge favor by getting up a minimum of once an hour, even if it's just to go to the water cooler and come back, just to get your body moving. Bad food. Lots of cupcakes. One cupcake. Whatever it happens to be. Again, we have entire things on that. I don't want to get off on tangents because I tend to do that. But if we give our bodies bad fuel, how are we going to possibly perform? If you take a Corvette and put diesel fuel in it, is it going to work so well? No, it's the wrong fuel. It's not what it's designed to use. That's what we do every time we put all those refined carbs and sugar and fast food and all that crap in our bodies. How about life? So I meant to grab a big poster that we had. We kind of put it away because it got beat up over the years. But it's easily this tall by this wide. And basically, it's all the things that can cause those subluxations to happen. So the fact that we're alive and we're moving and we do things all day long could potentially cause something in our spine to shift out of place and get stuck there. Doesn't matter if it's something healthy like exercising or if it's something unhealthy like sitting on the couch all day. The fact that we're alive, that those joints are designed to move, means there's the potential that they might not move correctly. Just like any machine that exists, you have to do the maintenance on it to keep it going. And the sad fact is most of the people in the world take better care of their car than they do of their own body. We can replace our cars every couple of years. You can't get a new body. And of course, failing to properly learn to care for your spine from birth is what actually causes all these problems. I just realized we don't have the TV on there at all. There we go. Sorry, let me shift that. Perfect. All right. So whatever that happens to be, that's why we do these classes every week, why we go out in the community, we do things. We're actually having a health fair in the office on October 1st. There's flyers that are up there. It's not just us. We're having at least 7 or 8 other providers and people here to help people learn how to be healthier. Because if you don't take the opportunity to learn how to be healthier, you're going to be part of that statistic of the people who die every year because they don't know they have a better choice. So what can you do to help it? Or to reconnect the cycle?
Take care of yourself.
It's a simple idea, right? You got to take care of yourself. The number one most important thing is you have to get adjusted. And it's not because I'm a chiropractor. I'm a chiropractor because this is the absolute truth. That if you do not get those bones put back into place and that communication working together again, you can do everything else right. Your body's still only going to work at 40%. So how frustrating is it for anyone who works out on a regular basis and you don't see results for a little while. You're like, what's wrong? I've been doing this program for a while, I'm eating right, and if you're trying to lose weight, I still haven't dropped a pound, or you plateau. That's pretty frustrating, right? Imagine if your body's working at 40% all the time, where you don't even have a 50% chance of getting to that next level or that next health you're looking for. So it's not uncommon that a lot of the athletes we take care of all of a sudden go further. They've noticed, they can go further on the treadmill or out while they're running, or their oxygen levels actually increase for people who really pay attention to that stuff. Their blood pressure and things start to go down, and the only thing they change is they get adjusted because they're already doing everything else just right. So you have to make sure your system is communicating with itself that it's working. The only place to do that is here or another chiropractor. It doesn't have to be me, but you're already here. So it has to be chiropractic because it's the only profession that's actually trained to remove those subluxations and reconnect and restore that communication with your body. There's nobody else that does it. And of course, replacing any bad habits with great habits, because you cannot break a bad habit if you do not replace it with something else. That's just truth. Has anyone ever tried to change a habit and didn't have something else in its place? How often have you failed? 100% of the time. So what happens every January? The gyms get really, 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 really busy. And every March they're not so busy anymore, if it even takes that long. Because the person said, I'm going to change this, and they replaced it with something that might not have been easy for them to achieve, and they got discouraged and they quit. So you have to choose habits that are not only simple and easy for you to do, but that are easily replaceable so you stay motivated. So if you've never exercised a day in your life before, don't say, I'm going to go to the gym, or I'm going to do this P90X thing every single day for the whole program. Say, you know what, I'm going to get up, and I'm going to walk for 15 minutes a day. Or I'm going to do that 4 out of 7 days a week. You still have an opportunity to not do it every day and still succeed. And then build greater on top of that. And of course, the most important is engaging and learning how to properly care for your spine and teaching our kids in our next generation. Because if they don't learn to do it, this is the first generation being born right now that they're estimating that they're actually going to live less than the current generations that are alive. Because we're not teaching how to be healthier, we're teaching how to cover the symptom, how to just kind of deal with it, and how to coast through life. Is anyone okay with that? Okay, we're all alive, good. Because that really, they're estimating that the next generation of kids, or the ones being born right now, their life expectancy is actually going to drop. And that just happens to primarily only be in America. Maybe it's because we take 75% of the drugs in the world and we make up 5%. Story for another day. But anyway, we have to teach our kids, otherwise they're not going to learn from anywhere else. So, you have to get your God-given potential, we have to respect the idea of the above, down, inside out, or what we call the brief version of ADIO. So that above, down, inside out can be the power source in your brain between your ears, or it can be the one a little higher up. So for me, it's the one higher up. All that comes down through my body, goes out to everywhere else. So that's just how we're designed to work. Whatever you believe in, I respect your choice to believe in whatever that happens to be. But there is something that created us in the first place, whether you think that's evolution or something else or some combination. And if we don't learn to respect the way that we're designed, then we're going to be another one of those numbers, another one of those statistics of people that die every year because they didn't know better. Does anybody know what the number 2 cause of disease is real quick? Or the number 2 cause of death? This is really going to frustrate all of you. I got to censor myself because I'm online. It's the drugs and medicine that we take in the first place. The number 1 is ignorance. The number 2 is the medical profession that's there supposed to be saving our lives in the first place. More people die every single year from the things to prevent disease than anything else. It's crazy. So we have to start to change that. We have to change it. And it's easy to change because the concept of the safety pin, or the concept of how your body works, it's a simple one. Like I said, I love explaining complex things very simply. So that's easy. We can all pick up a safety pin and go, your brain's here, your body's here. If it's connected, it works great. If it's not, it doesn't. Right? We could do that to a 3 or 4-year-old and they could get it. They would understand it. So the solution is absolutely easy. It's so simple. I love it. The solution is me having a little more grip strength today. But the solution is just to reconnect that, or to get it adjusted, because that's the only thing that's going to reconnect it and actually train your body to be healthier. Of course, making those lifestyle changes too, and thriving through life instead of surviving through life is just simply more fun. So it's simple, easy, and fun to get the health you want if you learn to respect the way your body works in the first place. So something you learned tonight, somebody needs to know this. You need to share it with them because you might be the only person. Together we can start to change that ship or change where that ship is going of more people die every year because they don't know they have a better option. I can't reach everyone. I really wish I could. I really sometimes feel like, before I say this, I'm grateful for everyone who came to class and everyone who's watching online. But the fact that we're not across the street in the Renaissance Hotel needing a room that fills hundreds of people to hear this stuff is crazy to me. Because there are easily that many people out there right now that are sick and diseased and wishing for something better that simply don't know that there's another option there. So you might be the only person that ever tells them that. So please share that with them, because to get healthy again, it does take some work, it does take some effort, but it's absolutely possible if you do the things that we're designed to do in the first place to live to our God-given potential, to live at 100%, and to thrive through life as opposed to simply survive and end up like the poor guy on the right side of the screen from the beginning on his deathbed using that oxygen just to be able to move through life. So thank you all very much for coming tonight. Next week's class is, I'll be here. Perfect. It's a perfect follow-up. It's the big picture to your health. So be here, bring your friends. Let's need to rent a room across the street. All right, thank you very much. I don't know how to stop this.